city, my city, my city.
Today we move on to a new topic. We want to talk about what we call little foxes. Little foxes. In the book, we do encourage people to date in such a way as not to ignore little foxes. And I want my friend Mark here to help us talk about this a little bit further. So Mark, what are little foxes?
Thanks, Musimi. Little foxes are habits or tendencies that we see in relationships. Left unchecked, they bring strife and division later on in marriage. And I'm including marriage here deliberately because we champion for dating that leads to marriage. So marriage has to be in the picture.
All right, so when you say traits that left unchecked could bring issues, just help us to understand it a little bit better. If a chick doesn't like the way a guy chucks meat from his teeth after eating with a toothpick or with his nail, is that a little fox? Give us some examples of little foxes.
That's a funny one. Yeah. but I think little foxes are really significant stuff. You know, things like, you have a guy who's just a serial liar. He lies looking straight in the camera, a guy who steals money. I mean, he feels nothing about it. You have a girl who somehow, for some reason, she just loves attention and she can't hear anything about that, So I think it moves from one thing that looks very simple at this point, but left unchecked, it's a wolf later on, because it's
a little fox.
It's a little fox,
and later it becomes
a wolf.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, what is it that makes people generally ignore these things?
I think there could be many things, but I would go for a cultural philosophy. People say that love is blind, in a sense, to imply that someone is so caught up in the emotion of love that the idea of me being able to reason out what's going on or see is thrown out the window. That is not true. And in fact, when you look at that kind of love is actually lust. Because we believe in a Christian worldview, one of the things that we celebrate as Christians is that God loved us while we were still sinners. He was not oblivious of our condition. He was very much aware that this is a fallen person. And so if we are to borrow from the one who originates love, we see that love cannot be blind.
All right, okay. So give us a few ideas on how we are to address little foxes. So somebody's watching us and they're all of a sudden realizing that, oh my goodness, I have seen certain tendencies and traits in the person I'm dating, and they could be little foxes. How do they go about addressing them?
Identify and call them out. Have the courage to identify, just have the courage to be able to say, okay, I like this guy, I like this lady. However, there's something here. There's something here that is of concern. Just have the courage for that. And just beyond the courage is have the honor as well in how you bring it in. Don't go disrespectfully. And I think Pastor Musimi did talk about respect. I think there's a place for being able to say, I've noticed something, but the difference in how it will be taken is whether you bring it out respectfully or in an honorable way, or you bring it out in a way that is condemning and disrespectful. So I would say identify and call it out. Secondly, I think you're supposed to discuss and engage. Talk about it, and I think that's a function of timing and also just being someone who is what we call conscientious. That you look for that time that is good, when you can be able to engage, when there's no drama, and just bring it up calmly and say, hey, I have noticed when I talk about this, I see that there's an emotion in you that comes up and I'd like us to talk about it. I see you get really angry, Can we talk about that? Thirdly, I would add that I think through the place of prayer, praying to Christ and really seeking divine help. Because what is true, and probably you have noticed, human beings, we can't change the other person. God has the capacity to change and transform the heart of a human being. And so having the humility, because that's the spirit of being able to say, I'll pray for you. Having the humility to pray for someone and say, I can see this, we're making effort, we are trying as much as we can talk about it, but also let's pray about it, that God can be able to effect the change that would be right.
All right, so identify, call them out.
Yep.
Talk about them.
Yes.
And then pray and ask God to help you in the change.
Yes.
Assuming the individual wants to address.
Yeah, it's a big assumption,
issue.
But I think it is.
All right, so you've had it here. Thank you for joining us for Take 5. Do not ignore little foxes. Peace. We'll see you next time.
My city, my city, my city, my city, my city.